Hi everyone, I'm your host Matt Salem, and you've tuned in to another episode of Our Best Behavior, brought to you by Behaviorally. We are the global leader in providing data intelligence through our AI and tech-enabled product stack to help brands own the most valuable moment in marketing, the purchase transaction. We are Behaviorally, the transaction experts. Each episode, we share insights on trending topics within our industry and of interest to our customers. Today, we're joined by Tom Taulli, author of AI Basics and other publications, to discuss how AI is reshaping industries, organizations, and individual lives, unlocking a world of possibilities beyond imagination. From automating tasks to unleashing innovative solutions, AI brings unparalleled efficiency and ingenuity as it empowers smarter decisions, fuels growth, and fosters a culture of progress. Tom, thanks so much for joining us today. Hope you're well. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me.
Our pleasure for sure. I'd love it if you could just first introduce yourself to the audience, maybe give a little background information on yourself. And you also have many books in the marketplace. I'd like to get into those, but maybe just kind of a sneak preview of some of what you've worked on.
Yeah, great. And definitely. Yeah, so in terms of my background, it's more of as a software developer that goes long, many years ago. And the way I made my living and career was primarily through that focus on development, and started several companies in the 1990s. And but I was also like to write, not just code, but English words as well. And so I started writing articles and then books, and then in the last 5 or 6 years, as AI started to emerge as being very important, uh, I wrote AI Basics, and then a book about generative AI during the past couple of years. And then, like you mentioned, I have a new book coming out on, it's called AI Assisted Programming Using AI for Computer Development. So a lot's happened since I got started developing. I didn't really think that AI would help me code, but now it is.
Yeah, very cool. I mean, AI is helping everybody, I think, and that's part of what we'll be talking about today, the ways that it's helping, what we're seeing out there in the wild, so to speak. And, I know that you have a lot of expertise in AI, particularly with large language models, and I'd really like to hear a bit from you on that. ChatGPT, pretty much known by everyone, it seems, at this point. I literally have my 9-year-old son and my 6-year-old daughter in the office today, and I was using ChatGPT earlier, and he walked by and he said, "Oh, Dad, why are you using ChatGPT?" And I thought, you better not be using it to do anything at school that you should be learning by yourself. So everybody knows it, right? So when we think about these large language models, and we think about Microsoft Copilot, hoping you could talk to me a bit first about how these models work and how they can generate such great content for everyone.
Yeah, sure. And when you say I'm an expert in large language models, if someone says, you have a job ad, and he'll say, we're looking for an expert with 10 years experience in large language models, you'll know that the person who wrote that ad doesn't know about large language models because they've only been around for a few years. So, so learning about this has been more about trying to deal with the fire hose of information. And I can see why someone who's maybe not in this industry can find this very overwhelming and daunting, because it's complicated. It relies on very sophisticated, mathematics and models. But generally, an LLM, the large part of it, the first L, is that it takes in huge amounts of information. You know, at first it was text information, but now it's graphics and video and sound. But it takes all that information, and then it applies a model to it, an AI model, and that model is usually called a transformer model. And what makes this interesting, and this came about in 2017, so it's a recent innovation. What's interesting about this is that it can take a look at a lot of information and process it in parallel, and then find the correlations of all that information in parallel. So the old models would just kind of take information as it comes in and work at it, in a sequential way. The problem is that you're missing out on a lot of other information when you do that. So so the we've all experienced chatbots over the years, and we really, saw that these are not that great. It's because it's more of a sequential processing of that information.
Ah,
So the huge leap was, allowing this to be done in parallel and doing that in parallel. And that's been driven primarily by these graphics processing units, GPUs, that NVIDIA has innovated. And it's made it into the second most valuable company on the face of the earth. So you need these huge GPUs to process all this information in parallel using these sophisticated transformer models. And it's a little like magic, but basically it's, when you go to your iPhone and you start typing in information and it'll suggest the next word.
sure.
That's what it's doing. But when it's suggesting the next word, it's looking at all the relationships of all the words in that model and then finding the best one for that. And so when you do that at scale, you get the magic. You get it sounds human. It sounds like a person is communicating, but it's really a computer. So that's basically what a LLM. It's a little more technical look at it, but that's basically what an LLM is. And the industry is a lot of it about powering this is the GPU part right now. It's all the infrastructure. So a lot of the focus in the industry is on that right now. And that's not an easy thing to do. And there's a lot of shortages actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think NVIDIA, between large language models and Bitcoin mining, really just hit their stroke.
Yeah.
But that aside, when we think about the LLMs and the answers that we're getting, it's interesting. She talked about how it's not like it's a computer talking to you; it's like a person's talking to you, and it seems that stems from its ability to parallel all of this at the same time. So, on the one end, the great thing about that is it's very convincingly accurate, right? When we ask questions in ChatGPT, we get answers that are articulated very well, that are very coherent. There's context involved, there's examples cited perhaps, but wait a minute, they're not always true. Can you tell me a bit about that? Why is it so convincingly true in the way the answers come across? Even in instances where the chat GPT, if you press it a little and say, hey, I'm not sure that's the right answer, it'll kind of double back and say, oh, you know what? It's not the right answer. I apologize for that. Why doesn't it just do that right from the beginning?
Well, keep in mind that an LLM or large language model doesn't know anything. I mean, that's basically, we as humans know certain things. We learn and we know what, all these, now we get things wrong, but we do know certain things about a lot of things.
Right.
LLMs, all they're doing is taking in a lot of information and processing that in parallel and finding correlations and then spitting that back to us. It doesn't really, so that's all it's doing. And, a lot of times it's correct, but there's the possibility that some of it won't be correct. But, it's not going to know that what it's saying is wrong. So it doesn't necessarily lie. It can't lie because it doesn't really know anything. It just takes this information, applies an algorithm to it, and just gives us some information. And you can ask the same. The prompt is what you ask the LLM.
Sure.
You can actually ask it the same question word for word, and you'll keep getting different answers for it. So it's because of the probabilities and also the training data. So the information is based on, a lot of it is based on most of what is available on the internet. And surprise, surprise, some of that is not true. So it's picking up on those patterns that are not true and giving it back to us as the user. So that's why they call it hallucinations or whatever you want to call it. But you don't get the, sometimes you don't get the correct answer, but it'll say it in a very convincing way as if it were true. Now, what I will do is say, provide a source for that. Can you provide a source for that? Or I'll even say, what's wrong with what you just told me? And a lot of times they'll actually tell me what it got wrong.
Wow. I haven't tried
Yeah.
that. That's pretty smart and intuitive, I guess, right? I mean, yeah, just to ask it that, right?
Exactly. Or just say, I want to know the correct answer. The other thing too is these models are now a lot of times they'll search the internet. So you'll say, I want to know the answer to this question, but research the internet to give me this answer and provide sources for what you're providing me. That helps with the hallucinations.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I do like the ability to tell it to search through specific sites as well for my answers, because then if I have a credible source that I know it's leveraging, I could feel a lot more confident in the answer that I'm getting. And I really like this conversation right now around the challenges that we see with LLMs. And one thing that you said that I'd like to go in on just a little bit more is around training data. So, even taking this step more broadly outside of ChatGPT and just LLMs, but thinking about how businesses are applying AI, just like us here at Behaviorally, in order to create their own tools. What is the importance of training data? Because there's a lot of AI out there, but my assumption is it's only as good as the data that it's built on, right?
Yeah. So, there's something known as fine tuning an LLM, or LLMs is also known as a foundation model. So you have this general LLM, and then you fine tune it for your particular purpose. So you're seeing it already. Google has a fine tuned LLM for law, for cybersecurity, for these different types of categories. A company can do the same thing. So you may have a fine tuned for customer service, um, because ChatGPT is not going to may not know about the intricacies of your product line or your services or your pricing or things like that.
Uh-huh.
Now, this is where the big money is being made in consulting, where the consultants will come in, they'll take your data, your email, your documents, your Slack messages, feedback, whatever, take that information and fine tune these models for your particular use case. And that will greatly reduce the hallucinations, and it will also provide more personalization, more relevancy to your customers or to your employees or to whoever you're providing this to. The problem is this is very complicated to do. It takes data scientists. It takes using sophisticated tools. It can take a while. Now, there is a case recently where Klarna, which is this fintech company in Europe, partnered with OpenAI, which is the creator of ChatGPT. And what they did is they basically used this fine tuning process for customer service. And within a month, it did the equivalent of what 700 human agents could do at
Wow.
the equivalent quality, but actually resolved more of the problems for customers at a higher rate than the human. And that was just the first month.
Wow.
Yeah, but there are other cases where things can go completely off the rails. I think we saw that with Air Canada, where it gave him false information and it resulted in a lawsuit, created a lot of bad publicity, probably because it was not, finely tuned. The advantage that Klarna had is they had some of the world's top data scientists from an OpenAI building that system. Not every company has that.
Sure, sure. Well, I mean, a lot of interesting considerations when we think about LLMs in particular. I wanted to dovetail a bit into not just generation of answers, but generation of images. And what we're seeing through, frankly, directly in ChatGPT 4 now, leveraging DALL-E, et cetera, is the ability to just type in prompts and generate images that are pictures that you can then prompt further to further change, and images that may even contain words. And kind of tying both together, it's amazing what you can do. And it's amazing how you can iterate with images. But I do notice that at times, even on the image front, you get some funky looking replies from ChatGPT 4, right? Maybe somebody has an extra finger, or you say, hey, spell this word and put it in an image, and it just spells it completely wrong, even though in text it can spell it right. And I'm wondering about some of the disconnects there? Because seemingly you would expect it to easily create, for example, an image with the word behaviorally on it, yet it'll misspell it completely. It might even look a bit hieroglyphic at times. Why is that?
Yeah, so these text to image systems use a different model. It's called a diffusion model. Now, it uses huge amounts of data, which is images, but it also uses text data because it has to correlate the text to the images. That's actually one of the critical issues with this. So, and what it is, it's a kind of a complicated process, but it'll take a lot of these images, it'll take all these images in parallel using these GPUs, and it'll add noise, random noise to these images, and then it will denoise it, and then kind of go back and forth. And so that's where you get this, creativity or variability in these images. That can be very useful when you're trying to do creative images. Some of these are spectacular looking images, right? But that noising and denoising can also add an element of unpredictability, which could mean that some things that need to really be specific, like words, don't come out properly. Or, it's about patterns too. So, sometimes it'll just say, let's have a finger. Oh, let's have another finger. Let's have another finger. Let's have another finger. Doesn't know I have to stop at 5 fingers. It just knows, oh, there's these, these fingers kind of go on, and I'll just keep going on, and the computer keeps going on, and you have a lot of fingers, or heads. And
Right.
The other thing is, having 4 or 5 people in an image can really make things just go completely bonkers. So there's so a lot of it has to do with this underlying diffusion model, and the other part is just the training data. There may not be enough training data for that. So maybe I have an image of a certain color, certain tone, or whatever, but it doesn't have the kind of enough lettering or content for that to make, to put those words together. And a lot of times it doesn't, it's not, so where the LLM is easier because all it's doing is looking at the correlation of words, whereas the text to image model is looking not only at it's looking at the correlation of words to images, and that can be a really fuzzy thing, that don't always correlate very is one-to-one as words to words. That's a lot easier than is words to images. So yeah. So we need to add all that together. You get some weird stuff. The Kate Middleton situation. I kind of wonder if she used an AI system, and maybe that resulted in some of the distortions that were.
Yeah. I know there was even some missing fingers and some of the stuff that I was reading about. Right, right, yeah. For sure.
But what's amazing is the experts at AP. They actually have a team that's what they do all day, is look at these images to see what is fake and what is not. And amazing. I don't know if you go to school for something like that, or I don't know where you learn something like that, but apparently they caught on pretty quickly that this was a fake, and they did a kill on the photo. So
yeah,
pretty interesting. Yeah. We're going to see a lot more of that this year, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I trust that prediction. So I guess as we start to kind of wrap here, I certainly want to get into some of your books. And, specifically, you have Artificial Intelligence Basics, a non-technical introduction, and another one, Generative AI, how ChatGPT and other AI tools will revolutionize business. And, we're certainly seeing the evidence of business revolution due to the incorporation of AI in day-to-day beginning. And it's only going to accelerate more quickly and more quickly as time goes by. I really would like to hear from you on, perhaps a bit more on the latter, but just generally speaking, the revolutionizing of business, what ways that you're seeing AI influence the day-to-day workforce, any particular instances that you may call out as unique or different than, just using ChatGPT at your desk, which still has great advantages, of course. So yeah, I leave it with you to tell us a bit about the books themselves and the implications.
Yeah. So yeah, I think when it comes to business applications for AI, I think first of all is now everyone thinks that AI is only generative AI, which means you're missing out on a lot of other AI that could be really helpful to your company. Or what it could mean is that you're applying generative AI to something that is not going to really help you, or it's going to actually go against you. So I think, you know, if accuracy is extremely important, if you're in the healthcare industry and you're in a compliance environment or you're putting together a Excel spreadsheet, generative AI is probably not what you want to do. You probably want to use more traditional AI like machine learning or something like that that'll get you the results. So I think part of it is, stepping back and just saying, not, what always happens is a new technology comes around and we think it's a silver bullet and it'll cure all the problems, and it winds up causing more problems because we're not what we need to do is apply the right technology to solve the problem we want to solve. So I brought the example of Klarna, and that clearly is solving a huge pain point for companies. The problem is that implementing that is very expensive, takes a lot of resources, and is probably, out of the realm of a lot of companies right now for customer service. So if I were to look at generative AI, I would look at it more as back office or behind the scenes and not customer facing, because I think you do risk a lot unless you know what you're doing, you do risk a lot doing it on a customer facing basis. So I think that the book I talked about AI assisted programming. If there's really one area that's really shown a tremendous amount of productivity gains for generative AI, it's that. Um, if you have developers, they're expensive, and you want them to focus on what's important and what moves the needle, and you don't want them to have them work on tedious activities. Well, these AI assisted tools can greatly enhance their productivity and get more value out of your developers. And it also means that instead of spending a lot of time looking things up, they can spend time reviewing the code or adding to the code or improving the user interface or whatever you want to do. So I think that's important. I also think the other thing is I think focus on where generative AI is good, and I think creativity is one of those areas. So I think no surprise marketing has been one of those early use cases because maybe accuracy is not necessarily top of mind. It's about creating something that's engaging or interesting, whether it be a blog post or a tweet or so forth. But you can go even farther. And I do think that a system like generative AI or ChatGPT is really useful for brainstorming. So there was a study done at Wharton where they had students come up with business ideas for an innovation course. And so they came up with their ideas and then they compared those to those that were created by ChatGPT. And then they tested them with actual people, but they didn't know which was, ChatGPT and which wasn't. And what they found is by far the judges saw ChatGPT's innovations as much more innovative than human people. So, I'm not saying that we have to replace humans and things like that. You still have to prompt these systems. You still need humans to prompt them, and human is very much still in the loop. But I do think that when it comes to brainstorming, I think there's a lot of value you can get out. Now, when you come up with ideas you've already thought about or kind of stupid ideas, but what happens if it just comes up with one idea?
Yeah.
Just one.
Yeah.
It was worth it. And all it took is a few seconds.
Yeah, I love all those points. I on the generative AI piece, generally speaking, I love the juxtaposition you have of how much it can help, and frankly, it could even pass for better than human, if you will, on the one hand. But on the other hand, without human intervention, prompting, nevertheless, checking for accuracy, subject matter expertise, generative AI, it's not the silver bullet. Humans won't be out of the mix anytime soon. And it's really going to be important that humans and AI work in harmony in order to get the most out of AI.
I agree. I agree. And that's why I think Microsoft's calling their system Copilot is really a good term for it. It's it's your assistant. It's not the pilot. I think we're still the pilot. I think we're still. I still trust people. At the end of the day, than a computer. So, but they can really help you out, and they can drive a lot of business value. But again, know where it works and where not to go. And I think that's the preliminary question you have to ask, and that's going to help a lot in the long run.
Yeah, fully agreed. I think that's a great note to wrap on. I really appreciate your time today. Appreciate all of your expertise and point of views, and certainly been an engaging conversation. I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to Our Best Behavior, brought to you by Behaviorally. Tom, thanks again. Really appreciate you coming on today. Be sure to check out other episodes, to those of you listening, of the Our Best Behavior podcast. It's found on our website here, www.behaviorally.com. And with that, we'll catch you next time.